For our final conversation for today, we are going all the way to the Democratic Republic of Congo. So, the government in the DRC is looking to take legal actions against Apple. Yes, Apple computers. Here's the thing, they're saying that Apple is getting illegal minerals from illegally exported minerals from DRC. Here's the thing, to the best of my knowledge, DRC is filled with the choicest minerals, all the rare earth minerals we need for today, particularly lithium that we need for and cobalt, lithium and cobalt that we need for batteries, for all and this green energy transition. All of these things in DRC. In fact, I've heard a lot of people say that this is the reason why it seems like no matter what is done, this terrorism and insurgency in DRC never ceases to grow. For example, the terrorists are occupying the choicest area in DRC and they are mining these minerals and they're exporting it. So apparently, many of these things are mined and then sent through Rwanda. Then it's processed in Rwanda and then added to the global supply chain. The government of DRC wants this to stop and it makes sense. But I have two things to say. In our last segment, I mentioned this thing, and I'm going to reiterate it now. Africa needs to stop this thing of literally plunging the continent into chaos at the bidding of external players. Because why is Rwanda's name coming into this conversation? This conversation of illegally taking minerals from the DRC. Why is Rwanda's name in that conversation? Why? If you have seen many of these mines in the DRC, where um these minerals are mined. Young children are bringing this thing out from the earth. Children. It's very interesting. The world says a lot of things about human rights, children's rights, but when it comes to actual practice, it's not really practiced. And when it's not practiced, people don't really bat an eye. They don't bat an eye. Because what is going on with child labor, not just that, like inhumane child labor in DRC, is supposed to trigger global anger. But no, it's not. Yet they come and tell us human rights. Are these children in Rwanda, is it not part, sorry, these children in DRC, are they not part of human rights? Are they not humans? Don't they have rights? It's very painful. And that's why it's really upsetting that Rwanda's name, on several occasions, I have heard the president of DRC accuse the president of Rwanda of sponsoring insurgency in his country. I've heard him say that several times. But the president of Rwanda is someone that I have come to respect because of what he has done for his country. So I've come to respect him, and I find it hard to put his name in such a conversation. But at this point, it's saddening. If terrorists are illegally mining rare earth minerals from DRC, and then the government in Rwanda wants to tell me that they don't know. Okay, now that we have announced it, what are they going to do about it? That is one end of this. The other end of this conversation is all these big corporations. This thing that they said that at least is alleged that Apple is doing and allowing. In fact, Apple is, when you buy, it's just like when they say don't buy blood diamonds because you're sponsoring conflicts and everything. When you buy blood lithium and blood cobalt, when you buy blood lithium and blood cobalt and child labor cobalt, is it not the same? Is it not supposed to be looked at with the same disgust? Is it not supposed to be looked at with the same disgust? The thing that Apple is being accused of doing in DRC is alleged that Apple is doing in DRC. They can't do it in their countries. Sometimes you look at what Shell and all these big corporations, these big oil corporations have done in oil-rich African countries like Nigeria. You see the way they just take out the thing and not even care, without care, not for the environment, not for the people living in the area, nothing. They just take it out and they just go. Take it with such brazen disrespect. I saw a video of those were Chinese in a certain region in Nigeria. Is rich in gold. And so the Chinese are illegally mining. The small scale miners. So they're working with small scale miners to take the gold. Ooh. I don't know if it's the Chinese government, but I know that Chinese nationals that were apprehended in it. If you see what they did to the land, the way they mined this thing, the land has been completely destroyed. The vegetation around now, if now the way it was mined, it's causing flooding into neighboring villages. So then I ask myself, what these people do this thing in China? Do this thing like this in China? They will not. So why is it that you have respect to behave properly in your own country? Then when you come to Africa, you just behave like you have no idea of law and order. They just behave anyhow. As in the southwestern part of Nigeria, rich in gold. In fact, how I even watched it, that it was a documentary by a Nigerian TV station on the matter, and so it was the Oba, that's the king of that village, who called the press to show them what the Chinese nationals have done to their land. They so decimated this thing. They so decimated this land. You would weep, but they will not do that thing in China. Look at what Shell, Mobile doing in Nigeria. Go to Bayelsa, look at the way they take the oil. Go to rivers. They do this thing so disrespectful. They will not do it in the United States. They won't do it in the United Kingdom. They won't do it in France. They won't do it in Netherlands. Why do you do it in Nigeria? Why are you doing now? Now Apple is allegedly buying blood minerals from DRC. Why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? I said this thing before. See, for Africa to really work, in as much as we realize that, oh, we are different countries and work in the interest of our country, but we also need to remember that outside of this continent, I don't think the world, the global community really puts too much mind to African matters. I'm serious. Because the way they overlook many of the human rights abuses in Africa, it's like just look away. If it happens in somewhere in Europe, oh my God. Hey, if it happens in somewhere in Europe, you will not hear the end of it. You will not hear the end of it. But it happens in Africa every day, every day, every day. Nothing. Since 2022, we've been hearing Russia, Ukraine. Since 2023, um we've been hearing Israel, Palestine. And don't get me wrong, it's important to talk about this conflict. But how many times do we hear what is going on in the DRC? The DRC is on fire. The same thing in the last segment I spoke about Sudan. Sudan is on fire. How many times do we hear about these things? I just mentioned to you also that a big media outlet like Al Jazeera was listing the regions of the world where asking their audience, where do you like, which area do you like to hear more news on? And Africa was not on the list. Africa was not on the list. So this tells me that for us to move this continent forward, we need to work together. We need to understand that the success of Nigeria is reliant on the success of other African countries. Is reliant on the success of other African countries because we are alone. People will say, "Oh, human rights is just in the mouth." It doesn't really. If you look at the real actions and the real decisions that are being made, it's as though nobody cares about human rights. If you talk about, oh, child labor is a bad thing, it's a bad thing in Europe and the Americas and the rest of them. When it comes to the children that are mining cobalt and lithium and the rest of them in DRC, it doesn't matter. There are big corporations who just come in and buy it. And I don't care how it gets into markets. This DLC and Apple conversation. Number one, we need to African leaders need to stop being a part of the problem to another African country. We need to stop it. And then we also need to realize that for our continent to work as a whole, we need to work together. The sum of all its parts. We need to work together. So I hope that the government of DRC is going to be able to resolve this thing. If it means going to court like they're already planning to do, fine, go to court. But I really hope that an end comes to this painful, painful thing that is going on in DRC.